What exactly do you expect me to do? Say to a caller, listen, Bob, I'm sorry you lost your job, but unemployment's a snore. Why don't you go sleep with your best friend's wife and call in on Monday when it'll be Infidelity Day on the Frasier Crane Show?
Frasier is a sitcom from the 90s and early 2000s about a psychiatrist who hosts a radio show. And it's quite possibly my favorite live-action sitcom from the US. Frasier is certainly very well known among its fan base, but has almost faded into obscurity in the past 2 decades. After only watching a few episodes, I immediately became a fan, and I think the main draw of the show are the characters. So today I'm going to discuss why I think Frasier does characters better than any show ever. Firstly, Frasier himself is a spun-off character from the sitcom Cheers, who moves back to his hometown of Seattle after divorcing his wife. If that sounds like a typical setup for a spin-off, don't worry, it is. However, by making this fan-favorite character the main character of his own show, we are able to explore him more deeply. This is exemplified with his various relationships with the other characters of the show. Firstly, there's Niles, and to properly explain his character, allow me to use an example. You know how you see compilations of characters on YouTube, usually with the title X being iconic for 5 minutes straight, or X being sassy for 5 minutes straight? And then all they really do is just look at a character in a certain way and everyone goes nuts about it? Well, it is no exaggeration when I say that not a single one of these characters holds a candle to Niles.
When was the last time you had an unexpressed thought?
I'm having one now. So, how's father?
Father? You mean the man who's driving me crazy? The man who makes me dread the sight of my very doorstep. The man who just drove me out of my own home.
And how's work?
In my opinion, he is the definitive sassy character.
Thanks for the chat, Niles. You're a good brother and a credit to the psychiatric profession.
You're a good brother, too.
But at the same time, he's not simply defined by this single character trait. In many ways, he takes over Frasier's role as the neurotic, out-of-touch character on the show as Frasier's younger brother. He's almost like a new and improved Frasier after Frasier becomes more down-to-earth after his divorce. Then there's Frasier's producer, Roz. Her relationship with Frasier stretches beyond a professional one, and she becomes Frasier's closest friend, explaining her rivalry with Niles, who is also Frasier's closest friend.
So, well, I'm far too successful to feel awkward. Where did we meet?
The radio station?
I'll take your word for it. Nice to see you again. Not very flattering, either. Toward the end, he even attacks your dim-witted sidekick call screener.
That's me!
Oh, now I remember you!
There's also Frasier's father, Marty, who's an ex-cop who retired from the force after being shot in the hip, and acts as the most down-to-earth character as well as the moral presence in the group, and is also a polar opposite of his sons. Marty's physical therapist is Daphne, perhaps the only British character in an American sitcom who's not from London. Daphne likes to claim that she's a bit psychic.
I'm a bit psychic. You're a dog, aren't you?
And also acts as a moral presence in the show as well as a companion to Marty. But who's even more of a companion to Marty is Eddie, the dog. Probably Marty's favourite child. There are also quite a few side characters, like Niles' wife, Maris, who comically never appears on the show in person. Bulldog Briscoe, who acts as a sports radio show host and is very much the anti-Frasier. Gil Chesterton, a food critic radio show host who dials up Frasier's pretentiousness specifically in the context of food. And B.B. Glazer, Frasier's agent, who I'll let Niles describe.
Lady Macbeth without the sincerity.
Even though I've introduced the characters, that still doesn't explain them fully, as their relationships are a huge part of their characters. So, Frasier and Niles are each other's closest friends, although Niles is somewhat resentful of the fame Frasier gets for his show as they share the same profession, though Frasier has had it so much easier. Niles makes Frasier embrace his pretentious hobbies, whereas Roz makes Frasier embrace a more professional life and often grounds him, or tries to ground him, as the acclaim of being a minor celebrity often goes to his head. In return, Frasier tries to give guidance to Roz in terms of her personal life, which involves a lot of dating. Roz and Niles, as previously mentioned, have a rivalry which involves a clash between Niles' book smarts and Roz's street smarts, or in many cases, common sense. Roz and Marty's relationship probably gets the least amount of screen time. That's not to say that they never appear together, which they do, and complement each other's groundedness. Roz is kind of like a mentor to Daphne, sort of like an older sister. Whilst Roz and Niles have a rivalry over their mutual friendship for Frasier, Frasier and Eddie have a similar rivalry over Marty, which is kind of more sad if you think about it. Daphne is a friend to Marty and helps him open up more without him realizing, which is easy to see when comparing the first episode and the later ones, though Daphne kind of views Marty differently.
Right. Well, it's sort of like you're my pet.
Marty, despite being slightly insecure about how his extremely educated sons view him, is usually the one who they come to for advice, almost like he's their father or something. Whilst Niles, the most pretentious of the group, has perhaps the antithesis of Marty's personality, he does secretly view his father as his mentor. As well as this, Niles, despite being married, is also hopelessly in love with Daphne. Daphne is like Frasier's typical British butler, though he does have a respect for her and treats her not like an employee. Finally, Marty and Frasier's relationship is perhaps the most rooted in their past and emotion. An example being an episode in which Frasier keeps noticing how Marty keeps meeting up and talking to an old family friend, whom they all grew apart from after a camping trip. Frasier and Niles begin to suspect that the reason why they grew apart is because Marty had an affair with this friend, and later Frasier confronts Marty about it. Marty reluctantly admits that it's true, which makes Frasier extremely upset, though at the same time makes him realize the truth as to why his parents often argued a lot when he was a child. Frasier views this as an insult to his late mother until he meets the family friend as they come over and discovers the truth.
While she was here, she told me what really happened.
All right, so now you know. You did your little digging and you stuck your nose in where it didn't belong. Are you happy now?
Why didn't you tell me it was Mom?
Because it was none of your damn business, and it still isn't.
Look, Dad, I don't blame you for being defensive, but I had a right to know. For your information, this sort of thing happens to a lot of people. And if it's any consolation, I know exactly how you feel.
I'm not going to go into the other aspects of the show, as other videos have already been made analyzing these aspects. I just personally feel that the show's true strengths lie with its characters. If you haven't watched the show before and are looking for an episode to start with, I would recommend the Series 3 finale, Police Story, in which every character plays to their strengths. Also, I forgot to mention Kelsey Grammer, who plays Frasier, is one of the greatest comedic actors ever. If you didn't already know, he also voices Sideshow Bob, and in the episode in which Sideshow Bob's brother appears, David Hyde Pierce, the actor who plays Niles, voices his brother, which is genius. Whoever came up with that in the writing room deserves a raise, that's all I'm saying.
Niles, I would shave my head for you.
A gesture which becomes less significant with each passing year.